I'd like to call Aaron Joustra and whoever he has chosen from Troop 888 to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and join us.
Please place your hand up to your heart. Scout salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you both.
Thank you, Tim.
Call the roll, please.
Mayor Bailey.
Here.
Mr. Bateman.
Here.
Mr. Goodyear.
Here.
Mr. Hart.
Here.
Mr. Ori.
Here.
Vice Mayor Phelps.
Here.
Mr. Ping.
Here.
Welcome, everyone. With us tonight, we have our Director of Finance, Mark Medler, Clerk of Council, Misty Clark, City Manager, Dave Kennedy, Acting City Solicitor, Jeff Levine, Police Chief Michael Gabrielson, former council members Kent Blair, Todd Osborne, and Pat Mays. And we have Major Steve Arrowsmith, Warren County Sheriff's Office, who we'll get to in a moment. Actually, we'll get to you right now. You're up. So welcome, everyone.
Thank you. First on the agenda. Great to see everyone. I appreciate a few minutes, as I do every year, on your agenda to come by and say hello, present our annual report, and to extend my appreciation for the continued support that we receive from this council, from Chief Gabrielson, from the men and women of the Loveland Police Department, and the citizens in the city who provide information to us. So I'd like to highlight just a couple things. Hopefully you'll have time to flip through that annual report. And I think I say the same thing every year, that I apologize for the appearance of that, but that's the extent of my IT skills. It's a Word document, but that's all I've got in me. So, but it's important to get an update out there to all the communities that we serve. So I appreciate the time. The Warren County Drug Task Force remains a multi-jurisdictional drug task force, so nothing has changed as far as our structure. Our primary areas of operation remain Warren County and the city of Wilmington and Clinton County. We continue to target mid to upper level drug traffickers, and a great deal of our time is spent on drug traffickers from outside of our county. So the geographical location of Warren County and the fact that we are located right between Dayton and Cincinnati impacts what we do every day. So we spend a lot of time with folks from Dayton and Cincinnati. You'll read in your annual report about the HIDA program, and I've spoke about that every year. HIDA stands for High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area. We have been a HIDA initiative since 2004. HIDA is a fantastic program. It's a federal program that requires the collaboration of federal, state, and local law enforcement. So it pushes us all together under one roof with the same mission to target drug trafficking offenses in our area. The task force concept is definitely the most effective way to target drug trafficking offenses. As the task force commander, I continue to report to the policy board. That is in your annual report as well. Chief Gabrielson serves on our policy board. Thank you, sir, for that. There are 16 agencies represented on our policy board. So we meet monthly. I prepare a presentation for our board. We discuss cases. They're briefed on things that are going on, ongoing cases. Task force investigations are rarely one-day cases. They're typically multi-day, multi-week, multi-month. Some go well beyond a year. So the policy board provides ongoing oversight for us, input, and direction for me as the task force commander. Staffing last year was down a little bit. We had 17 full-time people assigned to our unit. They come from 12 different law enforcement agencies. So those are all listed in your annual report as well. Activity in 2023, we had 331 new cases, 114 felony arrests, seized 58 firearms, executed 125 search warrants. Drug trends remain very similar to the last few previous years, with methamphetamine and fentanyl being our greatest drug threats, or what we spend the most of our time on each day. Unfortunately, there still remains pretty much an unlimited supply of those drugs available in Southwest Ohio. 2023, our task force seized over 35 pounds of methamphetamine, about 6 pounds of fentanyl, and about 18.5 pounds of cocaine. Drug-related overdose deaths in Warren County were down last year. We had 35 drug-related overdose deaths last year, so that's down from 45 in 2022 and down from 75 in 2020. Pleased with that number. Thank you for your financial contribution that you give to us. Our funding remains the same. We greatly appreciate that. We continue to operate on grants, HIDA funding, that helps us some, but community contributions from the jurisdictions that we serve cover very close to 30% of our overall budget. So without the support we receive from all of our villages and our townships and our cities, we would not be able to operate as we do today. So thank you for that. Thank you for your time. I'm glad to answer any questions if you have any, and hopefully you'll let me come back next year for.
Anyone have any questions, comments? Yes, Mr. Hart.
Just a couple numbers I'd like to see if you could kind of expand on just a hair.
Yes, sir.
So I see the methamphetamine number has jumped significantly, 22 to 23, while also seeing a decrease, fairly significant decrease in cases, and just a small decrease in search warrants.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of allude to how some of those things happen? Where did all that come from? Like, is there,
Right.
how those things work together?
Those numbers, they can be deceiving too, because our cases, like I said, methamphetamine, fentanyl are our primary drug threats, but you may see a spike in a particular drug that will be connected to information we received that year, or a certain person working with us, helping us. So we may have a spike in cocaine. I think 2 years ago we had a tremendous spike in cocaine, but that was actually contributed to one case involving a California source of supply, and it involved 25 kilos of cocaine. So one case can make a huge difference when it comes to a spike in a drug like that, or a decrease in a drug like that. So, and our case numbers, really, it just depends on what we get that year, because if a case we're spending a lot of time on one and it's taking us months, or we get a lot of smaller cases that we're able to get through quicker. It's really, all of those things are factors into what our numbers can do. It's kind of a roller coaster ride. Unfortunately, we're not running out of things to do. So those areas, those categories will, they'll increase, decrease from year to year. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Thank you very much.
Mr. Bateman?
Just a couple of questions, Major Aerosmith, and thank you for coming down and speaking to us. Sort of to follow up a little bit with Mr. Hart's review of the report, I saw that there is something in here talking about Warren County being the 7th highest county in the state for methamphetamine seizures, 10th highest for fentanyl seizures, 9th highest for cocaine seizures. That's interesting, given that the caseload has gone down.
Yes, sir.
So it seems that maybe a more targeted approach, more effective. A lot of those, like you're saying, the ebb and flows in 2023 must have yielded some positive results.
Those numbers, or those rankings, so to speak, around the state are task force seizures only.
Okay.
And what happens is all of our grant funding comes through the Department of Public Safety and the Office of Criminal Justice Services in Columbus. So if you're grant funded in a task force, you have to provide your seizure data to Columbus. We have to provide that once a month. So those where those rankings come in. We typically, actually Southwest Ohio typically has pretty high seizure numbers, and that you can attribute to Dayton and Cincinnati being major source cities in the state of Ohio. So, task forces just like us, their cases, they fluctuate for the same reasons that ours do. But those rankings are directly related to task forces only and reported through the Department of Public Safety.
Okay. would just generally speaking, would you say that the seizures are more likely a result of the traffic between the two major cities versus those drugs intending to stay here and the population of Warren County is the end user?
Right.
What is your general sense of like the activity, sort of like the life cycle, the sales cycle of the narcotic? Where are you intercepting it?
We spend a lot of time in Dayton and Cincinnati because our cases from Warren County, they always originate in Warren County, but our policy board is very supportive of us taking those to the highest level that we can, so to speak. So we are quickly in Dayton and Cincinnati and regularly working with their task forces, federal task forces, state task forces. And in Warren County, as our population continues to grow, we simply have more customers. So where there's a customer base, there's traffickers that will prey upon them. And we just happen to be in a great location for Dayton and Cincinnati traffickers to, it's an incredible amount of time that we spend on those traffickers that are literally, drug trafficking is very different now than it was 10 years ago. At least in our county, it's so fluid where a drug trafficker may come out of Dayton, come down 75 and hit the Franklin area and then start working, maybe meet in a parking lot, meet 10 customers there. And 5 minutes later, they're 2 jurisdictions away in another parking lot. And it's become a lot more challenging where we still have the individual community problems, but we're more so dealing with that problem, which is really makes things more difficult for us because they're moving quickly and a little tougher more challenging for us.
Which is the reason why the task force is in place in the first place.
Task forces just work, especially now, more than they ever have, because you're right. In Warren County, there's no one agency that can commit 17 to 20 full-time people with federal, state, and local resources to target nothing but drug trafficking offenses all day long. And that's what you need to do now.
So one last question, and again, I appreciate you answering it. I was just curious about the funding, the agency contributions, and it looks like there's some color code, there's a detective only and detective and cash consideration. So are some of these municipalities contributing staff to the task force?
They are, yes. And that color code just breaks it down for everybody. So typically, and to go back many years ago, we have asked for a financial contribution based upon the most recent census numbers of $1 per person to just support us and help us operate. And then or you contribute a full-time person with their training, their overtime, just the full package. So as financially things have become tighter for us to operate, and just it's become more difficult. Our policy board and jurisdictions that support us started to contribute more, and that's. So all of that sheet, I give that to you so you see what's going on around you. There are many jurisdictions that have doubled and tripled their, if you go to that $1 per person based on their population, because drug trafficking impacts all of us. Addiction impacts all of us. And so we, again, I'm so appreciative of, not just this city and this council, but everybody on that sheet. Who steps up, whether it be a tiny village somewhere that gives us $200 to help us, because their addicted population is impacted by these drug traffickers as well. It's really a terrible way to be funded, but that's the reality of how it is. So we depend heavily on that. Grant dollars are not, they're up and down, right. Up and down, up and down. And it's, so we're budgeting each year on a moving target and a lot of unknown numbers.
Thank you again.
Anyone else?
Yes. Major, I just want to thank you for coming and providing this report. I know how hard the job is to do what you're doing. I know sometimes it's like using a bucket in the ocean. right?
For
But
sure.
we certainly appreciate the effort and the work, and I appreciate the report.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
All right, Major. Thanks for taking your time to come down here. We always appreciate seeing you.
All right, I will be back.
We'll see you next year, if not before.
I'm going to cut out unless you need me.
All right. No.
Thank you.
Go have dinner.
In love.
That's right. All right. Next, we have Burgess and Nypel to give us an update on the West Loveland Avenue traffic mitigation study.
I'm just going to get something set up here.
Wanted to.
Okay, Dave.
They might need technical assistance. Too.
Technically challenged here, Dave.
Steve, you bring it up top.
Huh?
Oh, it is up top. That's what you're saying.
That's it.
Sorry about that.
There. Now I need a keyboard.
Might be more interesting.
Yeah.
Jeff's excited to be here.
No. No, I have to find these.
Oh, you should. Everybody else does.
What was that?
He's gonna watch this too.
You close to here?
No, we lost last night.
Okay.
It's a good.
Laughing out loud.
I need to see that.
Get a beer and watch.
That sounds pretty good.
So stupid. Gratuitous.
Yeah, I lost this.
carnage. It's so
Find us.
outrageous. It's funny.
That's what I heard. It's ridiculous.
Huh?
So,
What was
Right
funny.
Okay.
I enjoyed it immensely.
You want the color? You want the? Okay.
he's itching.
Just losing your eyes.
Thank you for having us this evening. I'd like to introduce, I'm Steve Smith. I'm the project manager for this project for Burgess and Nypel. And I brought here my kind of my technical assistants who are preparing the report and doing the traffic study. I have Randy Kill and Danny Soroka are here. And they're going to be doing the technical part of this project, this presentation. So the first thing I just wanted to do is kind of just do a review of how we got to the point we are today. This project started in May of 2023, and the project really began with coordination with OKI and the city to develop the traffic data, to discuss kind of existing impacts and understand the history of the traffic issues. At that point, we began meeting bi-weekly with the city staff to provide updates and feedback to the staff. We started our public outreach on this project in June of 2023, and that included a resident survey that was posted online, and we had 1,700 residents respond to the survey. And the information from that survey is going to be incorporated into the final study report. I believe you all received a copy of that, and it kind of gave an indication of how the people came to this part of the city and how they crossed through West Loveland corridor. And then lastly, we assembled a steering committee of the local government agencies. So we were trying to get feedback from Warren County, Claremont County, Hamilton County, the local townships, because we know that the solution to the traffic problems on West Loveland really can't just be solved within the city limits of Loveland. So we're looking for that buy-in from the locals, because we think this is more, and when Corey was here, we could see that more of a regional solution has to be found, because you can't just shove everything into this downtown area and say you're going to fix the problem. So that we looked at it from that standpoint. And then based on the input from the city residents, the local government agencies, and the traffic count modeling, we've developed a planning level concepts to mitigate the traffic mitigation. And this we're going to bring to a public meeting on April 30th. And then we're going to have about 30 more days of public input after that meeting. So online, the public can still give us their feedback on that. And at this time, Randy and Danny are going to provide a brief overview of the scope study and the alternatives that we're bringing to the public.
So thanks again for having us. So the purpose of this phase of the study, obviously, projects can range anywhere from a small intersection that turn lane you guys just finished, something smaller like that can range a year or so to a decade or more. There's no timeline on this project yet, but it has to start somewhere. So the first phase of this project is really to, like Steve said, get consensus on what the existing issues are. And then on our end, look at what all the existing constraints are, existing conditions, traffic and environmental and everything like that. That's the main scope of this part of the project. And then I will let Randy talk about the traffic, but then at the end of this, we want to leave with some options that we can move forward with into the next steps of the project, which would be funding applications, further refinement of the details of the location of any of these improvements. I don't want to, we're not really specifying if it's a new crossing or specific improvements, because it could be a series of different projects that we come out to really mitigate the traffic along Loveland Avenue. So the purpose of this is existing conditions, feasible alternatives, and public feedback and stakeholder consensus. So that's really where we're at. The next phases are going to be going to the public and coming up with the funding kind of outlook for this project. So Randy will talk about the traffic that we've done, start to get into the details, and then I'll come back and talk about some of the areas we're looking at for these improvements.
All right, thank you, Sue. Knowing that one of the biggest issues is the congestion along Loveland Avenue, also looking at the roadway and realizing with the right-of-way constraints, there's very little in the way of widening and additional lanes that can be done. To really improve the traffic flow on that corridor, the volume of traffic needs to come down a little bit. So one of the first things we did was we worked with OKI and their regional model to look at origin destination as far as where the vehicles that are currently crossing the bridge, where they're coming from and going to, just to get that idea to see maybe if there were some options we could do to move those. So from that origin destination, we saw that there were two main paths. So the bridge is right here, but we saw two patterns. So traffic from north and west of the bridge is coming down to Loveland Avenue, crossing over, and then working their way back up to the east and north. So kind of like a U movement. And then another pattern we saw was traffic again east and possibly north was working their way down, crossing the river, and then again working farther south down Loveland Madeira to either the 275 interchange or even farther south of that. So when we wanted to look at alternatives, options were, can we take that U movement, pull that traffic up so that it doesn't even come down to the corridor? And then also maybe is there a way to, if we know that there's traffic that's on the east side that's trying to get to the southwest side, could we keep them on the east side farther and then cross them farther south of Loveland Avenue? So we had OKI run some alternatives where we looked at an additional bridge crossing. So we had one that was to the north outside of the city limits, up in the area where that U was starting. And then we worked our way down a couple of other locations, including south of Loveland Avenue, again, outside of the city limits. When we looked at the volumes compared to not doing anything, the bridge crossing that was north of Loveland Avenue pulled about 20% of the vehicles that were using the existing bridge today off. So that would be a pretty significant reduction in traffic. and then also the bridge to the south took about 8 to 10% off. So it had a little bit of a benefit, but again, not quite as high as the one to the north. So right now, those are our two primary options for a new bridge location, or new bridge crossing would be to the north. And then also possibly one to the south. There's not a real good landing spot for it, so it may be just a case of working our way down and improving the corridor down and crossing the existing Hopewell Bridge, and even if that bridge is expanded. So those are the options we're looking at.
Then, so the last thing I'll touch on is, the numbers that Randy talked about are great, to get off 20% of the traffic. But all the OKI model and what Randy did was it connects 2 points with a straight line. And we know that we have a lot of constraints in this area. So what we're working through now is finding feasible routes that we can connect those point A and point B, So that's what we're working on now. That's what we'll be taking to the public. It won't be specific property impacts at this point, but we will have general, landing points, point A, point B, and about where the alignments will go. And then, like I said, the next phase would be going into refining those based on public feedback and hopefully choosing an area that we can look at multiple detailed alternatives. And so just to touch on where we're looking at now based on the initial constraints that we have, there's there's 2 lines to the north that are in this general area that basically connect Rich Road and Butterworth. And so, that takes the traffic that's up here, that's going over here, and takes it off of Loveland Avenue. And then, like Randy said, there's not a great crossing point with all the properties and constraints down here. And so we're looking at improving a corridor that comes from 48 down to this bridge here, and improvements would be made, which would take the traffic that's coming up here, and instead of having to cross and come down the west side, promote them to stay on the east side of the river. So both of those options, based on the traffic model, seem to take traffic off of Loveland Ave, and now we're in the process of just figuring out how to make that work. I'll let Steve touch on short-term solutions because these are longer-term solutions that we're looking for, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Yeah, so we've had discussions with the city staff and try to kind of figure out how to handle the short term. So part of the short term solutions is looking at the downtown intersections potentially and seeing if reconfiguration of 5 points or some improvements along 48 would kind of smooth traffic along the 48 on the east side of the city to maximize the traffic signals on those areas. Those don't take care of that crossing issue. There's also been a talk about, can you get more people off of on Carl Brown if you lowered it? There's a significant amount of traffic on Carl Brown, so that may or may not be a viable solution. But we're going to look at these different solutions and study those short-term gains, similar to the short-term solutions that are being implemented now with the parking, the pedestrian crossing safety issues, and some reconfigurations with the turning movements and things throughout the downtown area. So that'll be those next. Those will be part of those solutions that will be brought out into the report and in some evaluation, because those are the things that can be done potentially now if they have benefits. Where this solution has a cost that's going to take a few years to see through and to get the planning and get the make it fit properly for what we're seeing. From a schedule standpoint, the public meeting, as I said, is going to be April 30th. The online feedback will be finished on May 31st of this year, and we anticipate then this planning study here for the traffic mitigation of West Loveland to be submitted in August of this year. And I'll take questions at this time.
Does anyone have any questions? Mr. Peng?
I'm curious on the U that you talked about at the north side. With regard to that, is how far north are those two communities that I guess are coming down through the area?
So we didn't track it all the way. We were just, I would say it's up in the Fields Erdel area and then back up, and that's probably about the same level on the east side.
And how far up the river did the study go as far as 4 miles up there's a crossing? Was that part of the process as well? I mean, as to why those people might not be going north and making a U that direction.
Right. So we used the OKI model, so all those crossings were included. And so when we made basically a screen line down the river to make sure that we had the same number of crossings in all of our alternatives and something crazy wasn't going on in the model. But as we put that northern crossing in, it did lower the 22 crossing a little bit. So it did pull a little bit off of that, but the biggest change was the traffic from Loveland Avenue going up to the new crossing.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Hart.
So they're just redoing of a bridge just got completed recently up by King Avenue, up by Kings Mills. How long do you think it would take? I guess I don't expect a very scientific answer, but how long do you think it might take to see the effects of that new bridge? Or there was a bridge there, but it's significantly more accessible now. Do you think the impacts of that will be felt quickly? Do you think it'll take some time for people to recognize that that's a viable option now?
Yeah. So that bridge is open now. Is that correct?
What's that?
The bridge is open now.
It is open, yes.
I would expect that it will not take long to see any benefits from that because vehicles are.
Do you think we'll see benefit here from that bridge?
I'm not sure. It's
That's
just
fair.
how easy it is to get, into the areas they want to go. So, but it was in the model. So.
All right. Any other questions? Vice Mayor?
Just in following what's ahead after the public meeting, you'll take feedback. Will that be by verbally at the meeting as well as if somebody wants to submit something in writing to you?
That's all. I think meeting will be an open forum meeting, so there'll be boards and people will be having discussions with the people that are there, and there'll be cards so that people don't have to. They can put the cards and put their notations, and then our marketing, our public information consultant will work with the city staff, and we'll get something online for that'll be in the newsletter, and that's why we're taking that month so that then it has that feedback, and that information from the public meeting will be available at that time. And we'll give the opportunities for the people who could not make that meeting. And we're going to have that meeting up at the New Hope Baptist Church. So we feel that there will be a number of people that will want to be there, and we give the best opportunity to get in there and have a room that's to the size that we need.
Okay. And then you mentioned have the study done by August?
That's correct.
And will recommendations be part of the study, or at least ranking of alternatives?
So it's a planning study. So we're going to kind of lay out those the alternatives. And Danny, you could explain what you'll have in that as far as details.
Yeah, we're working through that right now. Typically we would have a recommended alternative, but I think in this case there's various alternatives that'll work to accomplish the goal. And it's going to depend on the coordination with the other agencies and funding. And so we'll set up a next steps to, based on these, whether it's it'll be a benefit cost basically, and what the next steps are to get to that, to keep that project moving. So the reason it's not a straight answer right now is because we're still working through the solutions. And if we determine that one of them is a no-brainer and, we see a great path for it, then we'd likely recommend that. But it's possible that there's a couple different that come out of this study that are going to need some further next steps to figure out which is the best solution.
Okay. Anyone else? Just as far as this public meeting is concerned, I guess I'm curious what you're trying to Is it to educate the public as to what alternatives you might be looking at? Is it to get feedback? But I don't know how they do that if you don't give them alternatives.
It's both. Where people have been talking about the traffic here for a long time, and we've had that resident survey out there. So we typically in the alternatives or these public meetings, we kind of show whether it's a final project, you show how it is, or alternatives that are out there to show where we see opportunities for improving the downtown area with a permanent solution. And then as they look at those, their position, how they affect their community, I try to get the feedback, whether it's pro or con, or they have other ideas that they might have. So we're really looking for that feedback of, do they think it's worth doing? Those kind of things. So we're not. There's nothing that we could receive from them that's bad information. We want to know what the public feels about the opportunities that we're offering, because these aren't straightforward. Like Dan said, the bridge crossings are very, very expensive, and they will affect some people. They affect some areas differently. We presented an early option to Warren County. They were not very happy with the early option, and we got a lot of feedback from the steering committee. So we've got that steering committee feedback for different options, but we haven't got that from the general public, and we want to get that general public's.
So you will give them some specifics of areas you're looking.
Yeah, they'll have boards around the room. So typically you'll have your locations of, and like Danny said, so they're kind of wide lines, so they don't say, hey, it's this property being taken or this, but basically the general area. And they'll have that to look at, but then we can discuss those. If they have any questions about those areas, we'll be there to discuss that with them at that time.
And a 20% reduction that you mentioned, you do consider that to be substantial?
Yes, that's a very large number.
It is. Okay. All right.
Last thing I'll add to your question about why we're going to the public. With the size of the project that this could potentially be, it's likely that federal funding and federal grant applications are going to be pursued. And that's just the federal process of keeping the public involved. And it looks better if you've done those steps prior to those grant applications.
No, I'm glad you're engaging the public. I just wanted to know what it is, how much information you would be giving, because obviously people want to know where you're looking to do this. So I'm glad to hear you're going to have those options available, at least for them to see.
And to add a little bit more, that 20% is about 4,000 vehicles a day.
Okay.
So quite a bit.
All right. Any other questions? Comments? All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
See you on the 30th. All right. Next on the agenda is review and approval of minutes from the February 27th meeting. Any corrections, additions?
Move to approve as written.
There a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Goodyear?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
I was not here for the last meeting, so I have to abstain.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right. Next, we have a second reading of an ordinance. We'll go ahead and read the ordinance.
Ordinance establishing the compensation and classification for the position of downtown groundskeeper and repealing ordinance 2023-80.
Any comment on the ordinance? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Goodyear?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Ordinance 25 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Mr. Medler?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a ordinance for assessing for unpaid utility bills for the quarter. We only have one county that is affected this quarter, so there's just one item.
All right. Any questions or comments from Mr. Medler? This is an ordinance, but we are one reading declaring an emergency, correct? Okay.
Yes.
Want to go ahead and read the ordinance?
Ordinance assessing liens for unpaid utility bills on property in Hamilton County owed to the city of Loveland and declaring an emergency.
You call the roll, please.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Goodyear?
Yes.
Ordinance 26 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Mr. Kennedy?
The CDBG program, which is a community development block grant, although the city's in 3 counties, we go through the CDBG program in Hamilton County. And the the primary focus of CDBG funding is for removal of slow and blight or LMI, and we have been able to, and the CDBG funding comes out every 3 years. And it's basically a process where they allocate a certain amount of money for the city, as they do for various locations. Our allocation is usually anywhere from around 70 grand up to about 90 grand. So every 3 years, the city goes through a process where we identify a project largely within the Heights. The Heights meets the LMI requirement, and it mirrors well with the city's focus on revitalizing the Heights. And so we've done some paving up on Florence. We have back-to-back cycles where the city secured funding to do valve replacement in the Heights, because to sort of isolate when leaks happen up in that area. With us moving forward with the Cherokee project and hopefully the Tuscarora project, we've sort of exhausted where we can still put valves on mains that aren't to be replaced in the near future. And with that, we decided to focus on something else for this coming cycle. And actually, we knew the funding was coming when we did the budget last year, so we actually allocated it in the 24 budget. We wanted to sort of pivot on the city's focus of connection of our neighborhoods, pedestrian connectivity. We looked at an area on Osage. It's a very unique stretch of the Heights, Osage, which ties into West Loveland. It is also an area where a lot of the kids, high school students within the Heights, used Osage to walk to school. And it's a bit of a funnel, and right now there are no sidewalks on that road. If you actually look at the Osage, you'll see that years ago, so obviously the city made a turn on West Loveland, made a turn from Tuscarora, but there's a big stretch in the middle. It's perfect for this particular funding because it is a straight up sidewalk project. It already has curbs and gutters and stormwater. So it is a perfect project to be able to just insert sidewalks and then take a pretty significant funnel into that area and give them a pedestrian crossing right up by Rich Road, and it'd be a perfect pathway to Loveland High School. So what we're doing here is simply we've identified the project. The CDBG program for two cycles did not require public hearings. They've gotten back to the requirement for the public hearing. So tonight, all City Council is doing is setting a public hearing for March 26th. At that public hearing, I will give a very, very brief, just quick summary of what we're doing. Have a couple more pictures of where we're at, how this project meets the LMI requirements for the CDBG program, and then we'll take back any feedback. We have a 30-day period where we're required to continue to receive public input. So tomorrow, we'll also put some information up on the city's website. And then by April 30th, which is right around the 30-day period of time, we'll submit the funding. We obviously anticipate will be funded. I've already have an engineer putting together the construction drawings. So this project, from the time the city says go to the time the construction will begin, will be relatively quickly. Again, outside of the fact that residents will come with other projects that they feel would meet this requirement, this one we feel right now, given the limitations, the LMI requirement, the infrastructure requirement, we think this is the best fit for this coming cycle. The city will then opt to take their funding all in one cycle in 24. And I've already met with the Hamilton County representatives to run this program. It definitely meets. The only modification they want is the existing turns, the handicap ramps on both sides don't have truncated domes. Everybody knows that there are those little bumps. So we'll remove those and we'll upgrade those with the truncated domes. So at this point, it's just a simple motion for council to set a public hearing for March 26th to review a proposed project for CDBG cycle funding.
Any comments or questions? Yes, Mr. Ping?
One question, and I probably missed it in here, but is this on just the west side of the road,
yes,
or both sides?
Yes, just on the one side of the road, on the
North.
it would be the
East side.
east side.
Yeah, the east
Yeah, it'd be on the east side. Actually, Councilmember Ping, the city was doing the Heights Grant program on that street, and the property owner there, as I was driving away, said to me, "Hey, Mr. Kennedy, if you're ever looking for a great place to put sidewalks, all the kids come down this street, and they walk to high school, and they walk in the middle of the street." And she was right. It's actually a perfect fit because, again, people don't understand. People, it's you try to explain, but when you do sidewalk projects, and if you look at the recent news thing that we're doing for Cherokee, that's a $2 million project. Almost half of that is for everything but water main, because you don't touch a water main without fixing the curbs and gutters and doing all the sidewalks. So with this, we're able to just use the funding for the sidewalk because the curbs and gutters are already there and the connectors are already there. It's sort of funny when you look at it. Well, not funny, but it's unique. So we really think it's a great project, and it really will, I believe, really will create that Safe Routes to School program that everyone is trying to do. So it's not just connectivity of a neighborhood, it's helping high school kids get to the high school and not walk in the middle of the street. So I think it really fits. So
Thank you.
Yes, Vice Mayor.
Will it require the removal of any trees?
No. I don't know why they just ran out of money years ago. You look at it, it looks like they had a plan. They just stopped. So no trees, no storm drain, no water main.
Any further questions or comments?
Sorry.
He's very excited about this.
More sidewalks. That's what we need.
All right, we need a motion for a public hearing.
I'll move for a public hearing to be held on the 26th at
At or about.
at or about 7 p.m. on the CBG funding application.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Ori?
Yep.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Goodyear?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Sure. Each year, City Council gives out 2 awards, the Loveland Business Enhancement Award and the Lewis G. Rockwood Community Service Award. So I'm proposing that Council will consider nominees and submit those to me prior to our next City Council meeting on March 6th. I'll get those all arranged and back to Council on April 9th, and you guys can make your selections at that meeting and award the awards at the April 23rd meeting, if that pleases Council.
All right. Anybody have any questions about that?
And a list of the past recipients is in your packet.
No trees.
All right, very good. Let's see. Announcements. Construction will begin on the West Loveland Avenue Bridge's sidewalks on Tuesday, March 19th. We will thereby have 3 bridge projects going at one time,
New record.
none of which is our fault or something we can control. They are all owned by people and entities other than us. Crews are scheduled to begin working at 8:30 a.m. The project will require partial lane closures and traffic will be maintained with flaggers. The project is expected to be completed no later than August 30th. Hopefully sooner. So I was the guest caller last month at Ben Morrison Fund. They had a bingo night at Hobsonberry. I don't know if you all know what Ben Morrison Fund is. Ben Morrison committed suicide when he was, I believe, still in high school. And this fund spends a lot of their energy on mental health awareness and trying to reach out and do community outreach with kids to avoid that. Also do scholarships. And this month, the guest caller is Stan McCoy. It will be on Wednesday, March 27th, 7 to 8:30 at Hobsonberry. So it's a very good fund to help. So if you are available on that Wednesday, go check it out. March 2nd, Rose Wine Bar and Boutique, which is across from Loveland Stage Company, had their grand opening, and they're very nice people, and it's pretty neat in there, so go check that out. I don't know who made it to Joseph and the amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. It runs through this Sunday at the Loveland Stage Company. If you don't have your tickets yet, too late. They're sold out, I believe, through the rest of this show. But Mr. Ori saw it as well, I believe. I don't know if anybody else did, but it was amazing. It really was. It's pretty impressive we have something that neat in our city. and they did a really nice job with it. So if you didn't get to this one, try to get to the next one. Does anybody else have anything to report? All right, then we need a motion to go into executive session.
I'll move for executive session under Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G2 to consider the purchase of property.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Goodyear?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
tell me when, sir. All right, we need a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Ping,
Yes.
Mayor Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Bateman,
Yes.
Goodyear,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mr. Ori,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right.